Oh, these are the
hexagons.
Yeah, the hexagons,
Yeah.
the rhyolite tufts
The giant
or
orange
whatever.
thing.
Yeah. Wow. Although this section does look like it's going to come off
It
soon.
looks like you're gonna die if you go over there.
This is different.
This is the low one, right?
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Notiers Frontiers.
In this series, we travel around the world on our motorcycle, KTM 1190, and now we are headed to the top of Alaska.
Dun, 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 dun.
We are going to talk about our Temple of MOTO tour that we've done. Now, it was supposed to be through Yellowstone, but as you may know from previous episodes, things went really awry.
Yes, things took a turn for not the worst, because we made the best out of a natural disaster, you know?
Yeah, but it was a natural disaster.
Yeah.
I mean, the flooding that happened ended up closing the entirety of the park of Yellowstone.
Yeah.
So
and thankfully, it's been reopened now, but the northern loop, it seems to be closed for at least this season.
it was some pretty intense flooding. It may be drying out quite a bit outside of the tent, but inside the tent, it's still very muddy. Ugh. Gross. And this Temple of MOTO tour was supposed to take place pretty much all within Yellowstone, you know, and going to the surrounding areas just a little bit. But because Yellowstone was closed, thankfully, the tour guide and founder of Temple of MOTO, Michele, had some other ideas up his sleeves. So I really want to introduce you guys to our dear friend, Michele.
Hello. Hello, how are you?
He is a fellow Chicagoan, which is awesome.
Kinda. Kinda Chicago, not kinda awesome. Kinda
That's
Chicago.
true. He's originally from Italy,
Yes.
but now lives in Chicago. And also he is the founder of Temple of MOTO, which is an adventure motorcycle touring company.
So I've always ridden a motorcycle since I was 14. I mean, in Italy, it's kind of the thing you do. It's not the cool thing you do, but like everybody does it. So it kind of came natural.
This is my American perception, but is it all like little scooters out there?
Correct. My first ramblings were on a Vespa 50cc.
Wow.
Then I graduated to a 125 Vespa, and I was going long distances for the time. I was going to
Really?
Milan to meet my girlfriend, and then coming back. And yeah, that was where the adventures. I spent a lot of my time in a corporate career, and then I was fortunate enough to travel in many different places. And every time I would link that business trip to a motorcycle trip. I've always wanted to do something with the motorcycles and the outdoors. The outdoors have always been my other passion. And the idea was to combine both.
This tour was a private tour with two individuals, a couple, Erica and Mark. And we were camped at a KOA, which was a very nice campground, but it was a very normal campground. But they were camped at an extraordinary campground.
A lot of motorcycle companies, touring companies that will take you places, and some of them are great, some of them are not so great, but the focus is almost exclusively on the riding, right? We are trying to focus also on the great outdoors.
Since we've been here in Yellowstone, you know, some of the camping options are just mind-blowing.
Yes.
Their place was these beautiful tents. You know, they kind of reminded me of like the old covered wagons that would go on the Oregon Trail.
Like, you know, canvas, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But unlike the Oregon Trail wagons, they had like wood burning stoves in them.
Yeah, so cool.
Yeah. They were very pretty, and they were all faced beautiful directions of seeing mountains in the distance. And
the views out there, and this would be like pasture land where elks would come out and moose.
And there was horse, less exotic, but still just as majestic.
Horses, yes.
Big fan of horses.
Absolutely beautiful. And then, of course, you have those snow-covered mountains in the distance.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful sight.
Our most unique tours are this one, the base camp tours, where it's like a shamrock tours. You're coming back every night to the base camp. And the base camp are in these really nice, some call them glamping locations. We have the chef that cooks for them on some of our tours.
So unique. Yeah. So we went that morning and picked up Erica and Mark. This day was going to be a journey into Montana.
Yeah, a place called Earthquake Lake.
When I first heard of Quake Lake, my initial reaction was, oh, that's cute, it rhymes. And then, as I thought a little bit more about it, I realized that it was named Earthquake Lake. And it didn't really all come together for me until we went to the visitor center and museum about Quake Lake. And I realized that this lake was formed by an earthquake.
It's right there in the name.
Yes.
Yep.
But this was very recent. When you first come upon the lake, you have to pass Hudson Lake. And that is a very blue lake. It's got all the trees around it that are bright and green and very a picturesque lake. But once you hit Quake Lake, you realize that the water is a lot muddier and there's these dead trees sticking up out of the water.
Yeah, it reminded me of, I always butcher the name, but Sossusvlei in Namibia. You know, kind of, I mean, it's just where trees shouldn't naturally be, you know, and in Namibia, it was at the end of, you know, rolling sand dunes. You know, it's this old trees sticking out of the landscape, and it just looks, you know, unique to say the least, because it's like, wow, those trees don't belong here.
In some ways, it's similar in that in Namibia, the sand was eating the life out of the trees, and then here the lake had sucked the life out of the trees.
Yeah, and they're still standing there as memorials, you know, little tombstones of each little tree.
We got to the museum and I watched this video and went around reading all about Quake Lake. Whoa.
Whoa. Make a lava river.
There you go, lava flow, magna flow.
The quake was massive. It was felt all across the western United States, and it happened on August 17th, 1959. So it really wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
They have footage and pictures of what the lake, well, it wasn't a lake before, what the valley looked like before the earthquake. And then when the earthquake hit in the middle of the night, there were 28 people who died, just completely covered by landslides and then the rushing water.
You know, I couldn't just imagine the panic and the terror.
The way it was described by some of the survivors was when the earthquake happened, it created such a huge landslide, and you're in these valleys and mountains, that there was a sucking of the wind that happened. The air got kind of sucked out in an instant to 100-mile-an-hour winds. And it literally ripped the clothes off of people. People had to hold on for dear life to the trees, and the trees were being ripped up all around. I mean, it sounded insane.
We were watching a film on a natural disaster while we were experiencing a natural disaster on a very much lesser scale ourselves. You know, it's like that area and Yellowstone itself is prone, and one day it's gonna just...
One day it's gonna blow. I mean, it is all a super volcano underneath the earth there. So there's so much seismic activity and geological activity that's just happening there. So our visit to Quake Lake was really eye-opening. I had no idea that this stuff had happened and this huge natural disaster had created this lake in that area. The ride was very beautiful too.
Oh, it was fantastic.
As we headed up through Montana, there were just all these mountains everywhere that we were passing that had snow on them still. I mean, it had been snowing just the previous day, so that wasn't a big surprise, but it was so picturesque because this day the weather had finally gotten beautiful. The sun was out, it was nice and warm, and there was all this green pasture land.
There's some rickety houses that had fallen, you know, or collapsed to one side, and now they just use that to like tuck hay underneath, you know. I don't know, it's just, it was really, really pretty for sure.
And our destination that afternoon was Virginia City.
When you're looking at the sky in here,
No, it's one of the cameras that play themselves. I wouldn't call it a ghost town because there's still people living there. It is a historic, preserved town. Most of the buildings are from the late 1800s.
Well, the first shop we went into was called, what was that tea shop called?
Tea and Scandal.
Tea and Scandal. And that was awesome. We had an amazing little conversation with the owner there.
She had like a bank and vault
Yeah, it was
in
the
back.
original bank.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where she kept her dragons, her stuffed animals.
dragons.
been some serious
So
ones,
beautifully
you know,
painted.
No, the fun ones seem to have to go faster.
Wow.
What's in
So
here,
you
folks?
have broken into.
Puff the Magic Dragon.
Whoa!
And then we went to, it was like a little coin-operated room, so there was like a Zoltar-esque machine, a future-telling thing.
Those old machines.
Yeah, and a bunch of, you know, you put a quarter in and something kind of silly happens, but it's fun. But there were all a bunch of them in the middle where there were like the little 3D off-center, not 3D, but you know, to them.
They called it 3D.
It was 4K back in the day, right?
Right.
But throw a quarter in and it flips through some 3D pictures.
Yeah,
and,
you put your eyes in the eye holes and
Yeah.
you look into this box.
and a couple of
see.
them were like, you know, like sports related or whatever, but the big money makers were the
adult content.
the adult content, and I was like, "Whoa, this is, you know, this is gonna be a walloping good time." Who thought that this was gonna happen? I put a quarter in, and oh my god, the
Wow.
linen and things I saw was risque.
It was very, very interesting.
What else?
So our visit to Virginia City was really, really nice. And this was only day one of the last 3 days of the Temple of MOTO tour. The next day was also beautiful, and we decided to explore a bit of Idaho. We had already been to Mesa Falls, but we revisited it with Mark and Erica.
Good morning. I'm excited for another Temple of MOTO day. We're going to be riding, and the weather should be really nice. We're going all around Idaho today. Not all around, but into Idaho. And we're going to see some lovely waterfalls, and I'm excited.
We are on our way to Mesa Falls.
got our tour guide and our two buddies, and us in the back.
Were gorgeous, especially since the weather was so nice and we had just had so much rain. They were super full.
Yeah, they sure were.
And after Mesa Falls, Michele had this loop.
There's a loop
road.
Yeah, that went down the scenic way.
Sure what the conditions were going to be like, and it was a beautiful road.
It was so nice.
But there were trees that had fallen
in both
all
directions.
Over the road.
It was like if the wind had a quake instead of an earthquake. It was like an airquake. It was
an
like,
airquake. Yeah.
What is going on here? There's trees going this way, trees going that way.
Yeah, I don't know what could have caused that.
I love going underneath the little trees and bumping over the trees that had fallen. You know, I'm not doing any log jumps or anything, but
it was really fun.
It was very, very, very pretty.
And it was great on pavement, but then once we hit the gravel, it was a bit deep, a bit loose, and Mark and Erica did not have motorcycles
she
for
was
that
on a
type of
Ninja,
riding.
and when you think of Ninja, I think like Kawasaki Ninja, you know, like sports bikes, but this was like a Kawasaki Ninja sports tour bike.
It was really cool.
Yeah, and I forget what he had, but another kind of touring bike. Definitely not appropriate tires for off-road.
No.
And since this tour was catered to, you know, riding around Yellowstone, that's all pavement, there wasn't a lot of expectation of a whole lot of off-road riding.
Yeah.
So sadly, we had to backtrack after a couple miles of realizing that the pavement was getting looser. And
it was going to be like another 22 miles.
Yeah.
Who knows what the situation with that road was going to be like. And it was very obvious that the road had not been maintained in a long time because those trees were all over the place.
For sure. And we hadn't seen another car the whole time. We turned around and had a nice little zigzag back through the same beautiful little territory. Stopped at that 50s diner and ate there again.
I really liked that 50s diner. It was so good. And huckleberry is a really popular thing in Montana and in that whole region. Yeah. And they had some wonderful huckleberry shakes at the 50s diner.
Sure
They're
did.
so good. They're like little blueberries. It's delicious. Yeah. Now, the last day of the Temple of Moto tour was a very special day for us because it was Tim's birthday.
30th birthday.
No.
Yeah.
It was his big 4-0.
Yeah.
We were super excited about it because once again, the weather was looking great and clear. And Michele had a very special surprise for us in store. Happy birthday, Tim.
I'm 40. I'm old.
No.
And dirty.
That might be true.
Yeah.
So today is Tim's birthday and the weather was supposed to be in the 80s and perfectly sunny, not a cloud in the sky. As you can see, it is cloudy, completely cloudy, but we still have hope that it is going to be a beautiful, beautiful day. We have a great ride ahead of us. Michele, can you tell
Hi.
me what's going on today?
Yes, we're gonna go up to Bozeman and do a big loop and coming back again, passing by a couple of lakes that are really gorgeous.
This ride is supposed to be just beautiful, isn't it?
It is supposed to be gorgeous. It follows a little river that turns into a big river because of the rain, and then it takes us all the way up to Bozeman. So looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
that'll be good.
Excellent. All right, so we're just packing up right now, and we're gonna meet up with Mark and Erica and then head off and keep our fingers crossed for some good weather. It's raining. We went all the way up through Montana to Bozeman, and that ride was stunning.
Yeah, no, that was really, really cool.
We had lunch at a little bakery. The Farmer's Daughters was the name of it. Yeah, they had some really, really good
And there was
food.
a farmer's daughter there. She was wearing like a silk nightgown. I don't know, but I saw her and I said, "Ooh, we just woke this woman up." But apparently, that's her daily garb.
That's her work
Yeah,
uniform.
and then there's a hotel attached to it, and there was some reason to call the fire department. And so there's all these. It was a calendar in the making, folks. It was there was
the firemen
firemen and
farmers'
daughters, and it was just like, what the heck did we just walk into? Good food. We had some coffee and some good stuff. I had coffee, but
it was really, really good.
Yeah.
And then we headed back to West Yellowstone.
On the way back, we did that. I was excited to do that same loop to the east side of Quake Lake just because it's so pretty.
Yeah, to ride along Quake Lake again.
Yeah, and so we did that, and it was awesome. Marissa and I, it's quite windy of a day, but I wanted to take some pictures, and there's
Super windy.
some kind of nasty gravel in some sections. I pulled in to get some pictures of the bike and Marissa looking pretty into the distance and the lake.
And the bike was on its kickstand like this.
Into the wind, right?
Into the wind, like the wind is coming in this direction.
With the bike leaning, and yeah, it completely upended, and I was just like,
The wind blew
"Jeez."
it over.
Yeah.
Crazy. I mean, I felt like the wind was pushing
It was
me,
a natural
but-
disaster to me. I was like, oh my goodness, the bike. First time, folks, it fell in this whole existence. But
Oh,
yeah, so we
man.
picked the bike up. Of course, you got to take the time and take some pictures, as long as there's no trapped human being underneath it. Crazy strong wind in that little valley where the lake was.
So overall, you had a stunning birthday.
This is true.
We try to mix the riding with the discovery of wherever we are. So now we're in Yellowstone, but we have these tours in like the Redwoods National Park and the Black Hills.
So what are some of your favorite places that you go to?
I would say Yellowstone definitely is one of my favorite. The Redwoods are phenomenal, and definitely Utah. We have 2 tours in Utah.
Oh, yes.
And I love those. For next year, we are adding 2 international tours, one in Baja, Mexico, all paved. Most of our tours are paved. And then we're going to Tuscany, which is my hometown. So, yeah.
Well, if you guys are interested in Temple of Moto, you can check out the link below. They're super great. I hope to be meeting up with you later on
Hopefully.
in the riding season.
Yes. If you join us in Utah or in the Smoky Mountains, that would be great.
Thank you so much.
Great.
And the next day, we were all going to split paths, and we were going to be headed through Idaho. So stay tuned for our next episode, and I hope you liked this one. If you did, please give us a huge thumbs up and hit the subscribe button below. Ding, ding. And we'll be seeing you next time.
Stay safe, everybody.
Bye.
Peace.
Huckleberry is a really popular thing in Montana and in that region. Bless you. In Montana and in that region.
Start with huckleberry so people don't see my veins plopping out of my neck as I sneeze.
And they had some wonderful huckleberry.